Who's the top quarterback in this year's NFL draft? I gave you my list of the top 8. You had some issues with it. I had Kyle McCord ahead of Will Howard. I have Kyle McCord as my number 4 quarterback. I have Shedeur Sanders as my number 1 quarterback. I do not have Riley Leonard inside my top 8. So in today's video, we're looking at the top comments from that video. I'll link it up above. I'll also include the list right here next to me as well. And I'm defending my stance. Let's get into it. First comment, very, very weak quarterback class. IDK if we'll see a consistent starter out of any of them. I think we're falling into recency bias as a collective football world evaluating this quarterback draft class. We're coming off the back of last year where there was 6 first-round quarterbacks. And sitting here right now, every single one of their fan bases is optimistic about the future for all 6 of them. Obviously, there's levels to it. Jaden Daniels is the peak. I think Caleb Williams is right behind him, but even the Atlanta Falcons with Michael Penix, they're excited about what the future could be. The Minnesota Vikings are excited about what J.J. McCarthy could be. And so there's recency bias of, hey, we just saw this huge class last year. So then naturally, this class with Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders headlining it this year takes a back seat to those guys. But when you compare it over the past decade, I don't think it's that bad. It's not a home run class, but I think Cam Ward's a really good prospect. I think Shedeur Sanders is a really good prospect. And what's really interesting about this class to me is you have a few guys that at one point in time had NFL first round grades. Quinn Ewers, Jaxson Dart, and Riley Leonard. Jaxson Dart's being talked about in the first round, but not the other 2 guys. That's interesting to me because if you pick up one of those guys later on in the draft, I don't think Riley Leonard will be a 2nd, 3rd, 4th round pick. But if he's a day 3 pick, maybe there's some value there. It just wouldn't surprise me if one of the non-top 2 guys ends up being an NFL starting quarterback down the road. I think the failure rate of first round quarterbacks feels higher because more teams are, 1, taking chances on younger quarterbacks because of the rookie contract situation and how valuable that can be. And 2, I think the football world's woken up to the fact that if you don't have a quarterback, you don't have a shot. And so if I'm a team on the fringe, we're going to reach and we're going to try to get that next guy. A little history look back of the quarterbacks drafted in the first round in recent memory. How many are starters currently in the NFL? In 2016, only 1 guy is a current starter. 2017, it's 1.5. Mahomes is 1. Deshaun Watson's the half. 2019, only 1 guy. 2021, only 1 guy. 2022, there are 0 first-round quarterbacks currently starters in the NFL. When you frame it that way, this quarterback draft class isn't that bad. Second comment, why is no one talking about Kyle McCord being on this list? You better believe Kyle McCord's on this list. Yes, he's a top 5 quarterback in this class, and yes, I have him at number 4 ahead of Will Howard, which is ironic because Ohio State said, all right, McCord, go do your thing. We're going to go get Will Howard ahead of you, and I think Kyle McCord is a better NFL draft prospect. If you think that's crazy land, you did not watch Syracuse football this year. I know they're on the East Coast. I know they're not in the Big Ten or the SEC, but Kyle McCord balled out. Gone are the days of him just being a game manager at Ohio State. Syracuse rolled out the ball every single week and said, go Kyle McCord, go win us this game. And they won 10 games under Fran Brown in that first year. So Kyle McCord's a baller. He was big picture stats, 1st in attempts, 1st in completions, 1st in yards in the country, 29 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, and did it efficiently, 65% completion percentage. Look at this though, against the blitz in 2024, 235 attempts, 151 completions. Both of those are tops in the country. That tells me he's processing and getting the ball out of his hands quickly, doing so, again, completion percentage at 64%. I think the film speaks, I think the stats speak, but with McCord, what I also love is the mentality. That could not have been easy. When you are the starting quarterback at Ohio State, you only lost, 1 game to Michigan? And yet that program says, all right, see ya. He battles through that adversity. He takes a chance. He could have got more money at a different school. He takes a chance and goes to Syracuse where he says, hey, I'm going to bet on myself because I know Syracuse is going to give me the keys to the car. And I'm going to prove that I was the big 4 or 5-star quarterback that I once was coming out of high school. I love that mentality. I love that approach. I don't think it's insignificant that he had success, maybe not to the Syracuse level, but had success at Ohio State and then had success again at Syracuse. A trend I've noticed recently, especially with Jaden Daniels, even at Caleb Williams, Michael Penix as well. It matters when you have success at different environments, at different schools with different play callers. I'm not saying Kyle McCord is a first-round guy, but I think someone snags him in the 2nd round. Comment number 3, couple Shedeur comments here. Shedeur is not worth what people think he is. He's a 4th or 5th round pick. Prime took the job at CU so that his son could play for a D1 team. He's a talented quarterback, but I'm skeptical about his ability translating into the NFL. So first off, I don't think Prime took the job so Shedeur could play at a bigger school. Shedeur could have done that at a high school. He elected to go to Jaxson State. He was a big-time recruit in his own right, so I don't buy that as well. Why do I think Shedeur will have success translating to the NFL? There's a few reasons, but the first is that production over multiple seasons has to matter. I think where first-round NFL draft quarterbacks have gone wrong is where they have kind of a one-hit wonder season. That's not the case with Shedeur. He's played at a high level back-to-back seasons at Colorado. It's well documented that his offensive line wasn't great. There was a lot of pressure and responsibility put on his shoulders, similar to what I just said about Kyle McCord, to carry the torch for not only the offense, but the team. In 2023, 70% completion percentage, 3,200 yards, 27 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. In 2024, he backed it up with 74% completion percentage, 4,100 yards passing, 37 TDs, 10 interceptions. I wonder too, if he wasn't Deion's kid, how would we perceive him? If his last name was Jones instead of Sanders, I don't think the hate around him would be as much. I don't think he'd have the bravado and the swagger, sure. But sometimes I think that the bravado and the swagger blinds people from the fact that he's tough as nails in the pocket. He consistently throws with anticipation, which it's not just like things are getting schemed open for him. No, he's making big time quarterback throws on a consistent week in, week out basis. I want to combine these next two Shedeur Sanders questions into one segment because they're related. First comment, what's Sanders' record against ranked teams? He balled against unranked teams like all these quarterbacks did. If his last name wasn't Sanders, he wouldn't be at the top. Second one, what game did Sanders exactly show up for? Was it Nebraska where he quit on the game early, or BYU where he didn't do shit until garbage time, or Oregon last year where they scored 6 points, or Wazoo last year where he didn't crack 100 passing yards? All right, you're hand-picking the worst games of the Colorado seasons the past 2 years and for Shedeur as well. Let me give you some games that he played great. 2023 at number 17 TCU, 47 attempts, 80% completion percentage, over 500 yards, 4 touchdowns. 2023 versus number 8 USC, that battle with Caleb Williams, down 34-7 in the second quarter. They tied it with 143 left in the fourth on the back of what Shedeur Sanders did. Versus number 16 Oregon State in 2023. They lost, but he was efficient. 245 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. 2023 versus Arizona, who was ranked 21 at the time. 2024 versus Baylor. 2024 versus Texas Tech. There are a lot of games and a lot of film where Shedeur Sanders is playing at a high level. So this record versus ranked teams, okay, it's 1-7. That's not good. But if I was evaluating the quarterback position, I would rather have a bad record versus ranked teams, but the film is not easy. He's having to grind for completions. He's having to bring his team back. If he doesn't play at a high level, his team might get blown out. I'd rather have that versus the flip side of, hey, maybe an SEC level quarterback where they're getting supported and insulated by a run game and a defense. And that's the reason that they're winning that game. So I don't buy into the record versus ranked teams 1-7 metric at all. Next one, we're heading to Jalen Milroe. Milroe is inconsistent and indecisive. Sure, he's a great athlete, but that doesn't translate to being a great NFL quarterback. Not sure what he's shown to indicate the ceiling you're talking about aside from pure speed. Pure speed and athleticism is why I'm saying he has the ceiling that he has. There are dual threat quarterbacks, and then there's guys like Lamar Jackson and Cam Newton. That is, from a defensive coordinator's perspective, the thing you fear most is what they can do with their legs. And it's not just hey, I'm a dual threat quarterback, and if he beats me with his legs, I'll live with it as a defensive coordinator. No, for guys like Lamar and Cam Newton, the game plan starts with their legs. That's how Jalen Milroe is. He's not in the same evaluation category as Lamar and Cam at this stage because he's not as strong from the pocket with his right arm. But if he gets in the perfect situation, it reminds me of a Jalen Hurts in Philly situation where he has all the pieces around him. I think Jalen Milroe can find success. I just think those landing spots are really hard to find. Next one, Riley Leonard. Where is he on this list? Riley Leonard is not in my top 8 NFL draft quarterbacks. And for one simple reason, I don't think his skill set translates to the NFL. It reminds me of Tim Tebow to some degree, where great college quarterback, great motivator, great leader, but relies too much on his legs in money downs in college to have success, where you can't rely on that in the National Football League. He is not, to the point we just talked about, he's not Jalen Milroe athleticism. And so I think his legs will get neutralized in a big way in the NFL. Check out this stat. On third down and 7 and 9 to go. So third and 7 and 9 to go. He was 9 for 19. Only 19 attempts the entire last season at Notre Dame, 9 completions. The rushing statistics on third down, 7 and 9 to go, he had 9 attempts. The same amount of rushing attempts as he did passing attempts. If you're an NFL quarterback, that should not be the metric. I think that speaks to his offensive coordinator, Mike Denbrock, and his mindset, knowing that, hey, our best pathway to success on third and 7 and 9, which that's not ideal, but that's still convertible, is going on the ground with his legs. That's not what I want from an NFL quarterback. And last one here, just because I found it super interesting. Dart to Seattle. I'm calling it. I'm a USC guy. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. The Seahawks are my squad. The Seahawks have been in an interesting quarterback spot really ever since Russ left, maybe even before that, where it was like, hey, maybe we do draft a quarterback. Wouldn't be the craziest thing. I think there was a world where they drafted Michael Penix if he slid a few more spots this past year, but it just wouldn't surprise me if in this year's draft, a team like Seattle fell in love with a quarterback like Jaxson Dart. We're not talking about Seattle taking a quarterback. I think they will re-sign Geno Smith, but there's some teams in this draft that have to be thinking about looking ahead towards the future. And I did the count. There are 14 NFL teams that I think could make a quarterback decision this offseason. That is a bunch. That is nearly half the league. If you don't believe me, go through the teams. This was fun. I appreciate the comments. If you like this video, consider hitting the subscribe button. If not, hey, I'll see you on the next vid. Thanks, guys.